This is Geometry Unit 1, Lesson 3 on factoring. We need the skills of factoring to solve problems in geometry that we learned in Algebra 1. So we're going to do a quick review of how to factor and multiply different kinds of polynomials. Alright, so first of all, let's look at some multiplying. When you see 2x times 3x minus 4, what property do you use? Distributive property, yeah. You say 2x times 3x is 6x squared, and 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. So that is multiplying a monomial by a binomial to get this. Alright, when you have two binomials, there's different ways you can do this. You can use FOIL, or you can use the box. Either one works just fine. If you like to do the box or FOIL, I'll do the box right here. Basically, all you have to do is you put your binomials on the outside, x plus 2, and then 3x minus 4 on either side, it doesn't matter, and then multiply your boxes. Alright, so x times 3x is 3x squared. If you're using FOIL, that would be the first term right there, so that's 3x squared. The outside term would be x times negative 4. X times negative 4 would be this box right here, negative 4x. And then the inside, outside, or the last boxes would be 2 times 3x. 2 times 3x is 6x. And then 2 times negative 4, or 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So this would be plus 6x minus 8. Combine your middle terms, you get 3x squared plus 2x minus 8. So that is multiplying, either by, this is FOIL, or this is the box. Okay, so when you factor, you are reversing this process. You reverse the distributive or reverse the FOIL. So first you want to look for a GCF. That's the first kind of factoring we have. If there is one, factor it out and then factor the remaining polynomial if possible. So if I want to factor by GCF, I want to look for a factor that goes into both of these. Well, 12x minus 20, what goes into both of those? Well, your GCF is 4. So if I reverse the distributive property, 4 times what gives me 12x? Well, it would be 3x. And then 4 times what gives me negative 20? Would be negative 5. So we are reverse the distributive property. Instead of doing outside times inside, we're looking at this and seeing what was multiplied to get that. So we could go 4 times 3x is 12x, 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Alright, what's your GCF on this one? Notice, not only is the GCF a number, it's also a variable. There is a 2 in each one of those factors. But there is also x cubed, x squared, x. There's at least one x in each one that we can take out. So your GCF is actually going to be 2x. So 2x times what gives me 2x cubed? Well, that gives me x squared. 2x times what gives me negative 6x squared? Well, it would be negative 3x. And then 2x times what gives me negative 4x would be negative 2. So that is using reverse distributive. The second kind of factoring that we have is a special kind of factoring is when we have what's called difference of squares. Alright, so when you see difference of squares, there are two things you should be looking for. The first and the last term are squared and they're also perfect squares, and in between is a minus. So if you have two perfect squares with a minus in the middle, it factors as the square root of each end. So a squared is actually a times a, b squared is b times b, and then your sign, since this is negative here, it's got to be plus minus. So you have identical factors except for the signs. Now remember, this only works when both ends are perfect squares and there's a minus in the middle. Alright, let's take a look at this one right here. X squared minus 25. X squared is a perfect square, 25 is a perfect square. So if I make my double bubbles here, I get x squared by saying x times x. I get 25 as 5 times 5, identical factors. One is plus, one is minus. Difference of squares. 4x squared minus 49. 4x squared is a perfect square. To get 4x squared, you have 2x times 2x. We know plus and minus for the signs, and then 49 is 7 times 7. 2x plus 7, 2x minus 7. It doesn't matter if your bit coefficient here is larger than 1. If it's a perfect square, this will work. Okay, now be very careful when you do your order on this one. I'm going to make my double bubbles here. I know 9 and x squared are both perfect squares, but where does the 9 go in this problem? Well, the 9 is in the first term, so that means that's found by multiplying this term times this term. So what gives you 9 that's the same? Well, it would be 3 and 3. And then plus and minus here. And then x squared would be x and x. Now notice it's negative x squared, so that's why it has to be on the end, so we make sure this is negative. So this would be plus x and minus x. So that'll give you 9 plus 3x minus 3x, and then minus x squared, and that works for the signs. Okay, how about this one? Does difference of squares work on this? Well, x squared is a perfect square. 36 is a perfect square, but what's about this? That's not a difference, that's a sum. That is a sum of squares. So sum of squares doesn't work. This is called prime. There is no way to get your double bubbles and get the signs to be the same without having a middle term. So this does not factor by the double bubble difference of squares. So sum of squares does not factor. So don't let that throw you. Factor, not figure. Does not factor. Okay, now let's take a look at this one. We have two terms, 3x squared and 48. Are either of those perfect squares? No, they are not. So we can't use difference of squares yet. However, what do we notice about this term and this term? Don't they have a GCF? What's your GCF between 3 and 48? Well, 3 is. When I factor out my 3 using reverse distributive, factor out the 3, I'm left with x squared minus 16. Is x squared minus 16 perfect squares? Yes, it is. And there's a minus in the middle. So this is actually going to be factored as 3 times x plus 4, x minus 4. And that is completely factored. I factored as far as I can go. All right, so difference of squares, 2 perfect squares, minus in the middle. And it factors as identical factors except for the signs. Our next kind of factoring is factoring trinomials where the leading coefficient, or the a value, is equal to 1. So if the coefficient out here is just x squared, we have two ways of doing that. You can either use reverse FOIL or the box method. So reverse FOIL is just working out your double bubbles like this, and the box method is making a box to figure out your values. Okay, if you're using the box method or double bubbles reverse FOIL, we know it's got to be x squared would go in this box right here, and that's got to be x times x. So in your first term right here, it's going to be x times x. Okay, the next thing you want to look at is your signs. This is negative 24. Okay, negative 24 is your factor that goes here. And then the two terms here and here would have to multiply to be negative 24. So whatever we put here and here has to multiply to negative 24. All right, so would that give me the same signs or different signs? Well, if this is negative, we're going to multiply two things together. One's got to be plus and one's got to be minus. And we'll figure that out in just a second. All right, now, we need two numbers that multiply to be negative 24, but they have to add up to be the middle number here, 10x. All right, so let's see what we can come up with to do this. All right, now, we need the factors of negative 24. What multiplies to give you 24? Well, that gives you probably 12 and 2. 12 and 2 give you 24. Will that work? Yeah, 12 and 2 will work if we get the signs right. We want this to be positive 10, so which one would have to be negative? Well, it would have to be positive 12 and minus 2. So if I put plus 12 here, minus 2 here, and multiply, I get negative 2x plus 12x, and when I add these two together, do I get 10? Yep. So this would be x plus 12, x minus 2. I also do the smiley face check sometimes. Gives you 10x, and that works for that one. So when you either the box or reverse FOIL, whichever works the best for you, is fine. All right, let's try x squared minus 10x plus 24. We'll do the boxes and the bubbles at the same time. All right, so here's my box, and here's my reverse FOIL bubbles. All right, I know this has to be x and x, so this would be x and x here to get x squared. All right, now the tricky part here is the 24. This is positive 24, so does that mean the signs are the same or different? Well, to multiply two numbers to get a positive either has to be plus plus or minus minus, so the signs would have to be the same. Now, is it plus plus or minus minus? Well, the middle term is minus, so it's got to be minus minus. So we know it's got to be minus here and minus there. So minus, minus. So both signs have to be negative. All right, now, could we use 12 and 2 on this? No, because the signs have to be the same. It wouldn't be 12 and 2. It would give you 14. But what other factors of 24 will give you 10? Well, how about 6 and 4? What if I put 6 there and 4 there? That gives me negative 4x, negative 6x, and that gives me negative 10x, and that works. That's what I want. So this is going to be x minus 6, x minus 4. All right, x squared minus 5x minus 36. Here's my box, and here's my bubble. Okay, I know it's got to be x and x. Is this going to be the same signs or different signs to get this? Well, if this is negative 36, one's got to be plus and one's got to be minus. All right, what multiplies to give you 36? Well, how about 9 and 4? So, whoops. If I put 9 here, and 4 here, you just have to figure out the signs. If this has got to be negative 5, which one would have to be negative? The 9 would have to be negative, and plus 4. So this would be x minus 9, x plus 4. Let's check our boxes. Negative 9 plus 4 gives me negative 5, and it works. All right, the last of these, this is 3x squared minus 12x plus 9. Before I do anything else, do you notice anything about these three numbers right here? Yeah, they factor by 3. So what if I take the 3 out first? That'll make my life much easier. X squared, divide this by 3, I get minus 4x, and then plus 3. Geez, that's not a hard one to factor. You probably do that one in your head almost. Here's my box. All right, make my double bubbles here. I know for x squared had to be x and x, so this has got to be xx here. Same signs or different signs? Same signs because it's plus. And then is it plus plus or minus minus? It's minus minus. Minus minus because the middle term is minus. All right, so this is going to be the factors of 3 that add up to be 4. Well, there's only one set of factors of 3. It's got to be 3 and 1. So x minus 3, x minus 1, check my factors, negative 3, negative 1x, add them together, I get negative 4x, and it works. All right, so this is completely factored. All right, now what happens if we want to factor larger trinomials, the trinomials where the a value is greater than 1? Like notice this one is 2x squared, and there's no GCF I can take out. All right, you can use reverse FOIL and use guess and check, or you can do the box method. This is the box method for doing this. There's a little more tricky thing to it. You have to remember one more step when you do the box, but it's really easy to do once you understand the method. All right, so if I want to factor 2x squared plus 5x minus 12, the first thing I have to know where my terms are. This is my a term, this is my b term, this is my c term. It's the number in front of the x's. In front of the x squared is the a, in front of the x is the b, and the last term is the constant, which is c. So the a and the c go in the box. 2x squared goes here, negative 12 goes there. All right, and then it says find the product of AC. Basically multiply these two together, giving you negative 24x squared. Don't ignore the signs. Squared. Okay, now we want to find two factors that multiply to be negative 24x squared and add up to be 5. All right, so what multiplies to give you 24 that adds up to 5? Well, isn't 8 times 3 24? Yeah, 8x and 3x. Now, if I want this to be positive 5, which one would have to be positive? It would be positive 8 minus 3. So I'm going to put those in here. It doesn't matter which box you put it in, but just make sure you put both signs. All right, so that's the factors you found. Use those numbers in the remaining boxes. Factor out the GCF of each row and column. GCF across here. What's common to both of those is x. What's common across the bottom? Well, 8 and 12 factors out a positive 4. Up and down is 2x. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 4 is 8x. And then notice here, both of these are negative. So that would be negative, and this is 3. So your factors are going to be 2x minus 3, x plus 4. Okay, so those are our different methods that we have for factoring. We'll finish up these two in class the next day, and then we'll do some practice at the bottom.